I turned the urn over and let the contents spill onto the boards. Gray dust scattered in the wind. That's what I cried over, I said. That's what I talked to every Sunday for 3 years. Lila was sobbing now. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. You're not sorry, I said. You're scared. I lifted the phone again. I've been recording since I stepped out of the trees. Everything. The confession. The 8 years. The urn. All of it. Thomas's face collapsed. Ev, please. We can talk. We can. No, I said. We can't. I dialed 911. When the dispatcher answered, I spoke very clearly. My name is Evelyn Hale. My husband Thomas Hale died 3 years ago. Or so I was told. He's alive. He's standing on my porch right now with the woman he's been living with in my house for the last 3 years. I have video. I have proof. Please send someone. I gave the address. I hung up. The sirens were coming. But the real punishment wasn't handcuffs. It was the phone call I still had to make. The one that would break my son's heart all over again. Then I sat on the porch steps and waited. They didn't run. They didn't fight. They just stood there like children caught stealing. The sheriff's cruisers took 28 minutes to arrive. 2 cars. 4 deputies. Sheriff Danvers himself. An older man who used to buy maple syrup from my mother. He looked at Thomas. Blinked. Looked again. Tom. Thomas couldn't meet his eyes. Sheriff Danvers turned to me. Evelyn, what in God's name is going on? I played the video. Everyone listened in silence. When it finished, Sheriff Danvers looked sick. He nodded to his deputies. They stepped forward with cuffs. Lila started screaming. No, 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 you can't do this. We're in love. We deserve to be happy. Thomas said nothing. They were put into separate cars. I watched the taillights disappear down the driveway. Then I walked inside my cabin. Smelled like coffee. Like cinnamon. Like them. I opened every window. I needed the smell of lake water and pine to come back in. But the hardest moment wasn't the arrest. It was telling Micah. Because no parent should ever have to explain that the person their child mourned is still breathing, and chose to disappear. The next call was the hardest one I ever made. I sat on the dock, same dock, different life, and dialed Micah. He answered on the second ring. Mom? You okay? I took a breath that felt like broken glass. Micah. You need to sit down. Silence. Mom. Your father is alive. Nothing. Then a sound I had never heard from my son. Half sob, half scream. What? He faked his death. He's been living here at the cabin with Lila. For 3 years. I heard him drop the phone. Heard him breathing hard. Heard something crash. Micah. I'm coming, he said. I'm coming right now. He drove through the night from Boston. Arrived at dawn. When he saw me, he hugged me so hard I thought my ribs would crack. Then he asked to see the video. He watched it twice. When it ended, he looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. I want to see her. We went to the county jail. Lila was in a holding cell. Makeup gone. Hair messy. She looked smaller. When she saw Micah, her face lit up for half a second, like she thought he would forgive her. Then he spoke. You let me bury my father. You let me watch my mother fall apart. You let me think I had no one left. And you were here, fucking my father. In my childhood home. Lila started crying again. Micah, baby, Don't call me baby. Don't call me anything. He turned to the guard. I'm done. He walked out. He never looked back. Justice came slowly. But when it arrived, it carried receipts, fake records, bank transfers, and one very empty urn. And yet the money could never repay the years we lost. The trial lasted 9 months. Evidence was overwhelming. Fake medical records. Paid-off doctor. Nurses who looked the other way. Money trail. $2.1 million siphoned from the business accounts into offshore shells. The urn filled with sand and fireplace ash became Exhibit A. The jury took 4 hours. Thomas got 14 years. Lila got 11. Most of the money came back. But money doesn't buy back 3 years of grief. It doesn't buy back the nights I sat on the dock talking to ashes. It doesn't buy back a son's broken heart. Some endings aren't clean. But sometimes you can rebuild from the ashes. And that's exactly what I did next. I moved back into the cabin. Not right away. First I had it cleaned. Every surface, every curtain, every corner. I burned the sheets they slept on. I painted every room a different color. White became sage green. Blue became cream. I brought Mr. Ellis back. He was 74 now, living with his daughter in Montpelier. I drove up one Saturday and knocked on the door. When he opened it, I took off my hat and started crying. "I'm so sorry," I said. "I didn't listen. I fired you. I let them push you out." He pulled me into a hug. "Girl," he said, "I never blamed you. You were hurting." I brought him back to the cabin. Triple pay. His own little guest house out back. He became the grandfather Micah's future children would need. Micah started coming more often. He brought his fiancée, Sarah. Then 2 years later they brought my first grandson, Eli. Watching that little boy run across the lawn, chasing fireflies, laughing the way Thomas used to laugh, it hurt. But it was a clean hurt. I met Jack Rowan the next spring. He lived on the next property over. Widower. Restored antique boats for a living. Quiet. Steady. We started slow. Coffee on my porch. Walks along the lake. He never pushed. Never asked for more than I could give. 2 years later we married on the dock. Small ceremony. Micah and Sarah. Mr. Ellis. A handful of neighbors. Jack held my hand and said, "I'm not here to replace anyone. I'm just here to stay." I believed him. For the first time in years I believed someone. The lake still holds secrets. But now it also holds new memories. And every spring something beautiful grows where I once scattered lies. The urn shards are gone. I smashed the black ceramic with a hammer one spring morning. Buried the pieces under the wild rose bush near the water. That summer wildflowers grew there, black-eyed Susans, lupin, yarrow. Every year they come back. I still walk to the lake some nights. I don't talk to Thomas anymore. I talk to the woman I used to be. She answers now. She says, "You survived. You rebuilt. You learned." And she's right. If you're listening to this, wherever you are, ask yourself these questions tonight. Have you ever had to bury someone who never died? Have you ever ignored the quiet voice that tried to warn you? Have you ever looked at the person you trusted most and realized you never really knew them at all? If you have, you're not alone. Drop a comment. Tell me your story. I read every one. As some truths burn. But ashes can grow new roots. They told me not to look inside the urn. Dr. Harlan Voss stood in the dim corridor of the private oncology wing in New York, his white coat pristine, his voice practiced and gentle. "Evelyn, you want to remember Thomas the way he was. Laughing on the dock. Splitting wood. Throng. The disease took so much already. A closed cremation. It's kinder. Trust me." I trusted him. My hands shook as I signed the form. The pen felt foreign, like it belonged to someone else. Thomas Hale, my husband of 38 years, father of our only son, builder of our life by Willow Lake, was gone. Or so they told me. I walked out of that hospital into cold March rain. My coat was too thin. My heart was thinner. I drove the rental car back to the hotel, sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall until the walls blurred. Then I cried until there was nothing left to cry. But what if the man you mourned for 3 years never actually left? What if the ashes you scattered across the lake were nothing but lies? Keep listening, because the real nightmare was only beginning. Back in Willow Creek, Vermont, the wake happened at our cabin. Neighbors came with foil-covered dishes, chicken pot pie, apple crisp, green bean casserole. They hugged me too long and said the same things over and over. He was a good man. He loved that lake. He's at peace now. Micah flew up from Boston. 28 years old and already hollow-eyed. He barely spoke. Just stood beside me holding my elbow like I might fall through the floorboards. Lila Brennan was there too. Thomas's business partner. His childhood friend. Our friend. She cried harder than anyone, great theatrical sobs that made people turn and offer her tissues. He kept squeezing my hand. He always said you were his anchor, Ev. Always. I believed her. I believed every single word. 2 weeks later the urn arrived. Matte black. Surprisingly heavy. I carried it down to the end of our dock one gray April morning. The water was flat and silver. I opened the lid, whispered, "I love you," and let the gray powder catch the wind. It spiraled out across Willow Lake like smoke from a dying fire. I stood there until my legs cramped. Then I went home to an empty cabin and began the long business of surviving. 3 years of grief can make you blind. But sometimes the truth refuses to stay buried. And when it finally rises, It burns everything you thought you knew. 3 years passed like pages in someone else's book. I moved into a small house in town, too painful to stay at the lake full time. I kept the cabin closed up, paid the taxes, paid the insurance, let the grass grow long. I taught part-time at the community center. I walked the same loop past the library every morning. I smiled when people asked how I was doing. I lied. Every Sunday I drove to the lake anyway. Not inside the cabin. Just to the dock. I brought lake iris or wild lupin, laid them at the water's edge and talked to the place where I'd scattered what I thought were my husband's ashes. I miss your laugh. The loons are back. Mike is doing okay. He's dating someone nice. The words felt thin like smoke. But saying them kept something alive. Then came the Sunday that broke everything. It was early October. The leaves were just starting to turn. Sugar maple red, birch gold. I woke before dawn with a strange pressure in my chest. Not pain. Not grief exactly. More like a hand pressing down saying go. Have you ever felt something pulling you back to a place you swore you'd never return to? That Sunday the lake called me home, and what I found there changed every memory I had left. I packed a thermos of black coffee, a wool blanket and a small bouquet of late asters. I drove the 47 miles of winding road without the radio on. Just the sound of tires on pavement, then gravel, then dirt. The gate to our property was unlocked. That was the first wrong thing. I always locked it. Always. The driveway had been recently graded. No potholes. No washboard ruts. Someone had taken care of it. My stomach folded in on itself. I parked behind a stand of white pine, killed the engine and sat listening. Birds. Wind in the needles. Nothing else. I walked the rest of the way. Quiet. Slow. The cabin came into view. Lights were on. Warm yellow light spilled from the kitchen windows. Smoke curled from the chimney. Roses. My old roses, were blooming along the porch rail. Someone had pruned them. Someone had cared for them. My knees felt liquid. I moved closer, staying in the shadows of the trees. Through the kitchen window I saw a woman. Back turned. Dark hair in a loose knot. Humming. Then the screen door opened. A man stepped out onto the porch. Red flannel shirt. The one I'd bought Thomas for Christmas 10 years earlier. The one he wore every fall when splitting wood. He stretched. Lit a cigarette. Exhaled smoke into the cool morning air. My heart slammed so hard I thought it would crack ribs. Thomas. Alive. Whole. Breathing. He turned his head slightly. I saw the familiar profile. The crooked nose from a teenage fight. The gray at the temples. The way he held his jaw when he was thinking. Then Lila came out behind him. She wrapped her arms around his waist from behind. Kissed the side of his neck. He laughed. That low, easy laugh I had mourned for 3 years. 3 years free, she said. Can you believe it? Best decision we ever made, he answered. She'll never come back here. She thinks I'm dust. Imagine watching the person you buried laugh in your face. Imagine realizing the grief you carried for 3 years was their freedom. What would you do in that moment? I'll tell you exactly what I did next. My hand found my phone. I pressed record without looking. Then I stepped out of the trees. Hello, Thomas. The cigarette fell from his fingers. It hit the porch boards and sparked. Lila spun. Her face drained white. Evelyn. I raised the phone. Don't stop on my account. You were just telling me how much you enjoyed being dead. Thomas took one step forward, hands up like I was holding a gun. Ev, listen, it's not what you... It's exactly what it looks like, I said. My voice sounded strange. Calm. Too calm. You're alive. You've been alive. In my house. With her. For 3 years. Lila started crying. Big, theatrical tears. The same ones she cried at the wake. We fell in love, Evelyn. We didn't know how to tell you. You were always so... steady. So predictable. Predictable, I repeated. The word tasted like metal. That's the word you want to use right now? Thomas looked at the ground. How long? I asked. Silence. How long? 8 years, he said quietly. We started 8 years ago. 8 years. 8 years of smiles across the dinner table. 8 years of kisses goodnight. 8 years of I love you while they planned to erase me. And the worst part? I still had one more confession to hear. I laughed once. A short, ugly sound. 8 years of lying to my face. 8 years of me raising our son while you. I couldn't finish the sentence. I looked at the cabin. My cabin. The porch Thomas and I rebuilt board by board. The roses I planted the first spring we lived here. The dock where Micah learned to swim. Where I scattered ashes that weren't ashes. Where's the urn? I asked. Thomas swallowed. Inside. Under the sink. I walked past them. They didn't try to stop me. In the kitchen, my kitchen, I opened the cabinet under the sink. There was the black urn. Still heavy. I carried it outside. Set it on the porch rail. Opened it. Sand. Fireplace ash. A few small stones for weight. Nothing of Thomas.